When the blow came, it was so brisk I almost didn't feel it. 18 years together, and Tom Carter delivered the kill shot via a 3-minute phone call, sandwiched between a dermatology consult and a planning call with his new boss. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be, Tiffy," he said, his voice softening on the Tiffy as if that would gentle the axe. "I've found someone." "We're both adults. You deserve happiness, too." He meant, of course, that he deserved happiness. And it turned out happiness was blonde, 26, and responded to Chelsea. I went through the phases everyone expects. Denial, the classic, if I cut my hair, maybe he'll notice I'm still alive. The wrecked mascara, the wallow in old wedding albums. At work, I kept up the performance. Client first had always been my motto, and in the sterile, forgiving light of conference rooms, I almost believed myself. But at home, the mask slipped. Our bed, a California king now stripped to bare mattress, became a no-man's land. I paced the kitchen for hours, rearranging the spice rack until everything was alphabetized, and the only thing left out of order was me. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake and replay our last year, searching for what I'd missed. The business trips that grew longer, the sex that became almost ceremonial, the cheerful stories about the new intern, Chelsea. She reminds me of you at that age, Tiff. Sharp as a tack. In hindsight, it was like being praised for being a perfectly aged steak right before the butcher's knife. When Tom moved out, he left behind everything except his gym bag and a drawer of performance socks. I boxed up his cologne and ran the bottle under hot water until it was clean, then packed it with the rest of his things. I did not cry. I did not smash his vintage Glenfiddich against the granite countertop, even though every rom-com suggested I should. Instead, I ran. At first, just around the block, then 5 miles, then 10, until my legs pulsed and my mind finally stilled. Running became therapy, and I wore my old race shirts like armor. I counted breaths, calculated splits, and pretended the pounding in my chest was from exertion and not dread. Tom's new life unfurled on Instagram like a revenge campaign. They hiked waterfalls. She tagged him in brunch photos with captions like, "My everything." There were selfies in matching parkas, her arm looped around his waist, both grinning like extras in a toothpaste commercial. Each post snagged at me, a reminder that I'd been swapped out for a newer model, a brighter smile. One night, 2 months into the separation, I found myself in line at the grocery store behind Tom and Chelsea. She was in athleisure, flawless, her hair spun gold under fluorescent lights. He wore a quarter-zip pullover, the same one I'd bought him for our last anniversary. They were laughing about some TikTok, oblivious to my existence, until Tom turned and saw me. His face froze. "Tiffany." "Hey." He dropped the hey like a peace offering, like he expected me to take it and move on. "Tom." I sounded like I was answering a deposition. Chelsea flashed me a nervous smile. "Hi, Tiffany. I've heard so much about you." Her tone was careful, almost apologetic. I considered all the options. Shriek, throw a pineapple, walk away. Instead, I nodded, cool as dry ice, and put my almond milk and lean cuisine on the conveyor. "Likewise," I said. We stood in tense silence while the cashier scanned their organic eggs and oat milk. Tom fumbled for his wallet. "How's work?" he asked. "Fantastic," I lied, though I'd just been passed over for a promotion that I trained my own manager to handle. Chelsea edged closer to Tom, her hand instinctively finding his. For a second, I almost pitied her, until she squeezed his fingers and gave me a look. Sympathy, maybe, or just relief that the awkward moment was almost over. "We should catch up sometime," Tom said, as if we were old college buddies who'd lost touch. "Lunch, maybe." "It doesn't have to be weird." "It's only weird if you make it weird," I replied, and walked out without my receipt. Outside, the air bit through my jacket, and I realized I'd left my gloves in my car. I jogged across the lot, feeling the echo of my own voice, sharp, brittle. Not the voice I remembered. I watched them through the glass as they loaded groceries into Tom's new Audi. She kissed his cheek, radiant in the glow of novelty. I gripped my keys so hard the metal bit into my palm. I wanted to forget them. I wanted to be the mature, self-actualized woman who used heartbreak as a launch pad for personal growth. But instead, I nursed my resentment like a sickly houseplant, watering it with every passive-aggressive comment on their posts, every mutual friend who liked Chelsea's photo but hadn't checked in on me once. After a month of wallowing, I accepted an invite from Emily, my best friend since college, to join her for drinks at the town's lone gastropub. Emily was divorced, once herself, and wore her bitterness like a badge. "You're giving him too much power," she said, swirling her whiskey. I laughed, not kindly. "You sound like an HR seminar." She grinned. "I moonlight as a motivational speaker on weekends. Seriously, Tiff, when's the last time you did something just for yourself?" I paused. "I went to the dentist yesterday." Emily rolled her eyes. "I mean, something real. Something that doesn't involve floss or spreadsheets." She had a point. In the months since Tom left, my world had shrunk to a treadmill in an empty condo. "I've been thinking about joining that swim club again," I offered, unsure if I meant it. Emily leaned in, voice lowering. "Or you could do something petty and absolutely glorious." Whatever it takes, I smiled, despite myself. The idea of revenge was childish, but it also lit up a part of my brain that had been dormant for years. The real opportunity came sooner than I expected. It was a Tuesday. The office was emptying out for the night, and I was killing time by alphabetizing marketing samples when I heard laughter from the corridor. Chelsea, in heels that looked medically inadvisable, was trailing behind my department head, arms full of promotional kits. She tripped, and the kits went flying. I reached out, instinct, muscle memory from a decade of cleaning up Tom's messes, and caught a box mid-air. "Nice save," Chelsea said, a little breathless. And for the first time, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way her lipstick was unevenly applied. She looked tired, human. "Thanks," I said. "Let me help you with those." We picked up the mess in silence, hands bumping. Up close, she was less intimidating, just another overworked, underpaid woman trying to stay afloat. She looked at me, really looked. And in that moment, I saw a flicker of something. Doubt, maybe, or exhaustion. "Are you okay?" I asked, surprising both of us. Chelsea's mouth twitched. "Honestly? I have no idea what I'm doing here." She glanced at the closed office doors, lowered her voice. "Tom acts like he runs the place." "I'm just trying to keep up a strange feeling pulsed in my chest. Pity? Kinship?" I swallowed it. "You'll figure it out," I said. She nodded, shoulders relaxing a little. "Maybe." We parted ways at the elevator, but her words stuck with me all night. The next morning, I got a LinkedIn notification. Chelsea had viewed my profile. The day after, she liked one of my posts about female leadership. On Friday, I found her in the break room crying over a mug of herbal tea. "He's impossible," she whispered when I offered her a tissue. "I thought he'd change, you know? But it's like I'm just next." I did not gloat, even though every cell in my body wanted to scream, "I told you so." Instead, I listened. I let her vent, let her lean on me, because for the first time since the divorce, I realized I had leverage. Tom hadn't just underestimated me, he'd underestimated her too. And so I plotted. Not in the cinematic, bunny boiler sense, but with careful, calculated moves. I let Chelsea see my vulnerability. I confided about Tom's old habits, his allergy to self-reflection. I let slip that he was a control freak, that he collected people, as Emily once put it, until they broke under the pressure. Chelsea started showing up at my office with coffee. We shared inside jokes. She invited me to lunch, and I said yes. We commiserated about difficult bosses, our mutual inability to keep houseplants alive. She even offered to set me up with her cousin, which I politely declined. The day I knew I'd won was the day Chelsea texted me at midnight. "Do you ever regret marrying him?" I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Yes, I wrote, then deleted it. Sometimes I wrote, then deleted again. No, I finally typed. I regret losing myself for him, but I'm getting better at that. Chelsea replied, "I want to be better at it too." The next morning, Tom found us in the break room, laughing over bad coffee. He looked at Chelsea, then at me, and for the first time I saw uncertainty in his eyes. It was beautiful. That night, I finished the online shopping cart. I ordered the pillows, and then I ordered a velvet throw just because I wanted it. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by Mediterranean blue, and realized I didn't care if Tom ever saw it. My world hadn't collapsed. It had just shifted, and maybe, finally, it was moving again. But revenge? I wasn't finished with that yet. Not by a long shot. I first saw Chelsea alone at Cafe Della, sandwiched between two laptops, her phone face down but blinking ceaselessly with notifications. She wore a peach sweater that clashed with her undertone, and the sight of it gave me more pleasure than I'd like to admit. I ordered my coffee and sat at the next table, not quite facing her but close enough to let proximity do its work. She noticed me in the reflection of her laptop screen before she looked up, her expression tightening with that small, private panic of being caught somewhere you're not supposed to be. We were both off-leash, outside the work habitat or mutual friend safeties. Here, every smile was an act of will. "Tiffany." She said it like an apology. I smiled, lifting my cup in a muted salute. "Chelsea." She fidgeted with her earring, the movement a flutter of uncertainty. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Me neither," I lied. I'd seen her Instagram post from 15 minutes ago, her in a latte captioned with a song lyric about finding your tribe. It was barely a challenge to triangulate. Freelance day. The office Wi-Fi kept dropping. "Tom says their tech guy is an idiot," she said too quickly, like she needed to cite a source for every statement. "He's always complaining about the router," Tom says. The phrase landed like an old bruise. I let the silence breathe, pretending to focus on a spreadsheet I'd opened but not read. Chelsea's gaze kept flicking to me, as if waiting for a punchline that never came. Finally, she closed her laptop. "Look, I don't want things to be weird between us." "Weird's a relative term," I replied. "I think we passed weird back at the supermarket." She winced. I was mortified, honestly. "Tom made it sound like you were... okay." "Tom says a lot of things," I said. My voice surprised me, gentler than I meant. "I'm fine, Chelsea." "Really?" She considered that, her face cycling through disbelief, relief, and something like gratitude. "That's good. Because I honestly think you're amazing. I mean, I know it's complicated, but I really admire you. I hope that's not too weird to say." It was almost sweet. Almost. I stirred my coffee. "It's not weird. You seem like you have your life together." Chelsea let out a noise, a snort of derision, and for the first time I saw a crack in her performance. "Hardly. I'm barely keeping my head above water. Tom's great, but he's, intense? Sometimes I feel like I'm in a competition I didn't sign up for." I let the phrase hang, half tempted to let her flounder, but curiosity got the better of me. "Competition?" She sighed, tracing the rim of her cup. "Just, keeping up with him. He's always on, always has to win at everything, even relaxing. He times his naps." She laughed, but there was a line of tension running down her jaw. I filed it away, another tiny chip in Tom's armor. "He was always like that," I said, playing the old war buddy card. "Used to keep score at Scrabble." Once docked me 5 points for a misspelled word. Chelsea's laugh was real this time, the relief evident. "He does that to me, too. Last week he tried to improve my chili recipe because he said it was missing umami. I snorted. I'm guessing he suggested anchovy paste. She looked stunned. How did you know? He's predictable. I sipped my coffee, savoring the moment. You'll get used to it. Chelsea smiled, and for a second, I could almost forget what she'd taken from me. A week later, she texted me. Is it weird to ask for coffee again? I could use a sanity check. The message glowed on my screen, a small bomb of possibility. I weighed the risks and rewards, then typed back, not weird at all. How's tomorrow? We met at the same cafe. She looked more tired, less like a magazine ad and more like someone who'd been up all night rethinking her choices. I recognized the look. It was the same one I'd worn for the first 6 months of my marriage, before I'd learned to perform contentment like a trained seal. Chelsea was mid-rant about work when she paused. You know, I thought dating the boss would make things easier. But I feel like everyone's waiting for me to mess up. Especially him, I let my face arrange itself into sympathetic lines. Tom doesn't handle vulnerability well. He thinks admitting uncertainty is a form of defeat. She nodded, fingers clenching the paper cup. He says I overthink things, that I should just relax and trust him more. But every time I do, I feel like I'm giving up another piece of myself. She looked up at me, her eyes rimmed red but dry. Did you ever feel like that? I held her gaze, let the question burn for a second. Every day, I admitted, and meant it. I used to think it was just me. Like I wasn't enough. Chelsea's breath trembled out of her. That's exactly it. I leaned in, lowering my voice. It's not you. Tom likes to be the center of gravity. It's exhausting to orbit him. She blinked. Wow, that's scarily accurate. We sat in a pocket of silence, the kind that feels like an agreement. Outside, a man argued with a parking meter, and for a moment we both watched, amused and a little envious of his single-minded focus. Chelsea reached across the table, her hand hovering before she thought better of it. Thank you. You probably hate me, and I wouldn't blame you, but no one else gets it. I shook my head. I don't hate you. I think you're braver than you realize. She smiled, small and sad. I wish I could believe that. Fake it, I said. It gets easier. We fell into a pattern. Texts, then lunch, then long walks after work that became a ritual neither of us acknowledged, but both seemed to need. Chelsea would vent about Tom, about her own parents, disapproving Midwest, never happy with her choices, about how she sometimes wondered if she was meant for something more than being someone's plus one. I would listen, ask questions, gently probe at the places that still hurt her. The more she confided, the more she relaxed, and the more she relaxed, the more she let slip about Tom's failings, his impatience, his need to control every aspect of their lives, his unwillingness to see her as anything but an extension of himself. I'd play devil's advocate sometimes, just to see if she'd defend him. Sometimes she did, out of habit more than conviction. Other times she'd catch herself and smile, like she knew she was being unreasonable, but couldn't help it. I know he loves me, she said once, as we watched the sunset from a park bench. But sometimes I think he loves the idea of me more than the actual me. I let that settle. He used to say I was his better half, I told her, but what he meant was I made him look better. She laughed, then covered her mouth. God, that's terrible. It's true, though. Chelsea's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, thumbed a quick reply, then sighed. He's on his way. Wants to check in. He's weirdly obsessed with knowing where I am. He was like that with me, too. I kept my voice light, but my hands were tense in my lap. She looked at me, something like fear flickering across her face. Is it bad that I'm scared of making him mad? Not bad. Just real. We stood, dusted imaginary crumbs from our pants, and started walking back. Chelsea talked about her upcoming birthday, about how Tom was planning a weekend getaway that she'd have no say in. "He means well," she said, but the phrase tasted like regret. I considered my next move, weighing honesty against strategy. "If you ever need an escape, just let me know," I said, making it sound like a joke, but meaning every word. She glanced sideways at me, and her smile was more grateful than she'd allow. 2 days before her birthday, I found Chelsea sitting in her car in the office parking lot, staring at the dashboard like she was expecting it to talk back. I knocked on her window, startling her. "Everything okay?" She rolled down the glass. "Not really." I hesitated, then slid into the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of vanilla and panic. Chelsea wiped her eyes, failing to hide the tears. "We had a fight. He said I was ungrateful, that I made him feel like he wasn't enough. Can you believe that?" "I could, actually." "Did you tell him how you feel?" I tried. He just doubled down, started listing all the things he's done for me, like he's keeping a ledger. I snorted. "He probably is." She laughed, then cried harder. "I'm so stupid. Everyone warned me, even my mom. I just thought I could handle him." "You can," I said, "but it's not your job to fix him." Chelsea stared at the steering wheel. "I wish I could go back and undo it all." I thought about that. "What would you do instead?" She shrugged. "Travel. Take a real job. Go back to school." Anything. I reached over, squeezing her hand. "You're not stuck." "It feels like it, but you're not." She looked at me, eyes hopeful and wet. "How did you get out?" I thought of all the nights I spent running, the years of making myself small so Tom could be big. I stopped caring what he thought. It wasn't overnight, but once I started, I couldn't stop. Chelsea squeezed back. "Will you help me?" The question caught me off guard. I'd expected her to ask for advice, maybe a pep talk, but she was looking at me like I was the only lifeline she had left. "Yes," I said before I could think better of it. "Whatever you need." We made a plan. Nothing dramatic, just slow, deliberate steps to give her space. I coached her on boundaries, on deflecting Tom's guilt trips. She practiced saying no, first in the mirror, then with me, then finally with Tom. It was like teaching a bird to fly after years in a cage. Every success made her giddy. Every setback she'd text me, sometimes after midnight, desperate for reassurance. I always answered. Sometimes I'd wake to her messages and feel a wave of protectiveness so fierce it shocked me. One night, she called. I could hear Tom yelling in the background, muffled but unmistakable. "Can I come over?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, grabbing a pair of sweatpants and racing to clean my living room in record time. When she arrived, she looked like she'd run through a windstorm. Mascara smudged, hair a mess, breath coming in shallow gasps. She stepped inside, closed the door, and for a moment just stood there, shaking. I wrapped her in a blanket and made tea, the way I used to for myself after Tom's worst tirades. She curled up on my couch, knees hugged to her chest. "I'm sorry," she said, voice small. "I don't mean to dump this on you." "You're not," I replied. "You're allowed to feel safe somewhere." She sipped her tea. "I used to think you were so intimidating. Now I just envy you." I smiled, a sad shared understanding. "You'll get there." Chelsea fell asleep on my couch, wrapped in the blanket and my old running hoodie. I sat nearby, watching her chest rise and fall, wondering how much of this was real connection and how much was just shared trauma. It didn't matter. Either way, Tom was losing, and for the first time, I didn't just feel better. I felt powerful. By the end of that month, Chelsea was a fixture in my life. We swapped playlists, went for runs, sometimes cooked dinner together. At first, it was easy to see her as a project, something to fix, a path to my own redemption. But as she laughed at my jokes and confided her weirdest fears, I felt the lines blur. Emily noticed. "You're obsessed," she teased. "Is this revenge or something else?" "Both," I admitted. She grinned. "Careful." Stockholm Syndrome goes both ways. I shrugged, but her words gnawed at me. What started as strategy was evolving into, what, friendship? Something more? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. Tom had no idea what was coming. I didn't just want Chelsea to leave him. I wanted her to leave him and never look back. And if I had to burn every bridge in the process, well, at least the light would be beautiful. By February, Chelsea had all but moved in. It started with a toothbrush in my medicine cabinet, then a drawer in my dresser, then her favorite kettle quietly supplanting mine on the stovetop. Our routines braided together. Morning runs, shared breakfasts, lazy Friday nights watching true crime documentaries under a heap of mismatched blankets. I was giddy, and I hated myself for it. The honeymoon phase was interrupted only by Tom's increasingly erratic attempts at control. He would call at odd hours, inventing work emergencies or demanding explanations for Chelsea's whereabouts. Sometimes he'd show up outside the cafe where we met, lurking in the periphery, too cowardly to confront but unable to relinquish his claim. Chelsea handled him with growing impatience. "He thinks if he just pushes harder, I'll snap back," she told me once, her eyes dark with exhaustion. "But all it does is make me want to run further." She did, sometimes literally, dragging me out for spontaneous 10K loops around the park, our breath fogging the air as we laughed about how far we'd come, how little we missed about the people we used to be. It was during one of these runs, sweaty, delirious, high on endorphins and bad gas station coffee, that I proposed. We'd stopped at a frozen lake, watching idiots in hockey gear chase each other across the glass. Chelsea nestled into my side, shivering despite her 3 layers. "If you could do anything right now, what would it be?" I asked, half teasing. She considered, then, "Move to Spain. Open a bar that only serves breakfast. Or," she grinned, nudging me, "finally beat you at Mario Kart." "Dream big," I said, squeezing her hand. She shrugged, grinning. "What about you?" I thought about it, really thought for the first time in years. The answer came before I could swallow it. "I'd marry you. Right here, on this dumb lake, if I could." The words hung, suspended and terrifying. Chelsea stared at me wide-eyed, as if I'd just suggested we rob a bank. "Are you serious?" I almost backtracked, almost played it off as a joke, but something electric thrummed in the air. "Yeah, I am." For a full minute, she said nothing. Then, "You're insane." "Probably." She bit her lip, trying to stifle a laugh, and for a moment I thought I'd ruined everything. Then she said, "You don't even have a ring." I looked down at her glove, grabbed a pine needle from the path, and tied it around her finger. "Now I do." Chelsea snorted, tears in her eyes, and kissed me so hard my knees buckled. "Okay, psycho." "Yes." We laughed until we couldn't breathe. It was the most alive I'd felt since college. Telling Tom was Chelsea's idea. "I want him to hear it from me," she said, voice steady. "He'll lose his mind either way, but maybe this will help him move on." She rehearsed the conversation, first with me, then with Emily, for hostile audience practice. Then finally with herself in the mirror. She dressed for battle. Navy slacks, tailored blazer, hair pulled back so tight it almost erased the dark circles. I went with her, partly for support, partly because I wanted to see the look on Tom's face. We met him at a bistro he'd once called "too trendy for real food." He wore a new suit, charcoal, aggressively fitted, and spent the first 5 minutes insulting the menu, the service, the lighting. Chelsea didn't bite. She waited until the first course arrived, then said, "I'm engaged." Tom blinked, absorbing the word as if it were a foreign concept. To who? To me, I said and smiled. He laughed, a hollow bark. Okay, that's cute. Seriously? Who? Chelsea reached across the table, took my hand, and held it up. The pine needle was gone, replaced by a silver band I'd found on Etsy. Tom's face drained, then flushed, dark with anger. You're joking, he said. This is insane, Chelsea. We're still... He shot a look at me, venomous. We're still married. This is a phase, you'll get over it. Chelsea's voice was ice. No, Tom. I won't. I'm happy. I want this. He shoved his chair back, nearly knocking over the wine. You're making a mistake. You always do this. Run to whoever validates you. That's why you liked me in the first place. Chelsea smiled, sad and pitying. You never really saw me, Tom. You just liked the reflection. He stormed out, leaving his coat and $100 bill on the table. The waiter eyed us nervously as if we might combust. Chelsea exhaled, slumping in her seat. That went about as well as expected. I squeezed her hand. You were perfect. She laughed, shaky but real. I'm a mess. I like your mess. The next week was a parade of Tom's manipulations. Flowers on her car, emails full of reminders about her supposed responsibilities, late-night calls alternating between apologies and threats. He cornered me in the office parking lot, voice low and dangerous. She's not as strong as she thinks, he hissed. You're setting her up to fail. I looked him dead in the eye. She's stronger than you'll ever be. He shook his head, pitying. You think you won? Wait until the shine wears off. She'll leave you, too. I shrugged. Maybe. But at least I'm not afraid of being left. Tom laughed, but the sound was hollow, barely human. You always needed to be the hero, Tiff. Even if it destroys you, I watched him walk away, smaller now, the suit less impressive, the swagger gone. He'd lost, and he knew it. Emily threw us an engagement party at her townhouse, complete with banners, U-Haul Speedrun Champions, and a cake shaped like two interlocked handcuffs. Our friends were divided between shock and delight. My parents, predictably, said nothing beyond a single-word email. Congratulations, Dad. Chelsea's parents never responded. She pretended it didn't hurt. After everyone left, we lay on the floor in a tangle of limbs, high on sugar and possibility. You still sure? I asked, half teasing, half scared. Chelsea rolled on top of me, pinning my shoulders. You're the weirdest person I know. Of course I'm sure. We kissed, slow and deliberate, until the only sound was the clink of plastic champagne flutes in the sink. Tom didn't show up again, except in stories Chelsea told when the nights ran long and we were both a little drunk. Sometimes she'd remember something sweet, a trip they took, a song they danced to, and I'd see the ghost of longing cross her face. It never lasted. She'd always finish with, I don't miss him. I just miss the idea of someone loving me that much. I knew exactly what she meant. Some mornings, I'd catch Chelsea staring at me across the breakfast table, her smile hesitant and soft. What? I'd ask, feigning annoyance. She'd shake her head. Nothing. But then she'd laugh, like everything was a surprise. It was. Every day. We were a mess, and maybe we always would be. But we were a mess together, and if revenge had been my motive, I'd already won. But this felt better. Building something out of the wreckage, even if neither of us knew what we were doing, especially because of that. Chelsea wanted to elope. She hated the idea of centerpieces, hated the stairs in the produce aisle, hated the way her inbox pinged with new friend requests from people she barely remembered from college. Can't we just go to City Hall? She'd plead, but I knew her too well. Underneath the jokes, she wanted a ceremony. She just didn't want to admit it. So I planned the wedding myself with a vengeful, almost religious zeal. I picked the date, the venue, the caterer. I even convinced Emily to become a certified officiant online. I only use my powers for good, she promised. If I had to withstand the scrutiny of everyone who'd ever doubted me, I'd make the event impossible to forget. The RSVPs rolled in like battle flags. My parents declined, citing unavoidable travel. Chelsea's mother sent a curt email, "Do what you must." Our co-workers, on the other hand, responded in droves. By the first week of April, we had a guest list that looked less like a family tree and more like a congressional subcommittee. Tom was the wild card. He hovered on the edge of every conversation, lurking in group chats and popping up in the parking lot, always with some faux casual barb about settling down too soon. He liked to corner me in the copy room, his voice so soft it was almost a threat. "You know, she never really got over me," he'd say, like he was offering me a coupon I'd forgotten to use. "You're just a rebound. Once the novelty wears off, you'll see." The first time, I ignored him. The third time, I smiled, wide and sharp. Maybe. But at least she doesn't cry herself to sleep anymore. Tom's eyes went flat like I'd triggered a reset button. "You think you're different? You're exactly like me, Tiffany. You just hide it better." Maybe he was right, but at least I had the decency to admit it. As the wedding approached, the air in our apartment turned electric. Chelsea and I argued over the playlist, the color of the napkins, the appropriateness of karaoke at a reception. Every fight felt huge, a storm that rattled the windows, but they always ended with one of us laughing, then both of us. The truth was, we were both terrified. Chelsea buried it under sarcasm. I buried it under control. We met in the middle, in the tiny hours after midnight, whispering secrets into each other's skin. One night, I found her hunched over her laptop, scrolling through a Google Doc titled Doubts. She noticed me in the doorway and closed it, sheepish. "Just a list." "Helps me sleep," I sat beside her on the couch. "Read me one." She hesitated. "I worry that I'll never be enough." "For you, or for myself?" I took her hand, tracing the veins. "You're the only person I've ever felt enough for." She laughed, watery. "You say that now." "I'll say it tomorrow." And the day after, she shut her eyes, letting the words soak in. Then, "Your turn." "My turn? What do you doubt?" I exhaled. "That I'll mess it up. That I'll turn into Tom." Chelsea looked at me, earnest and unflinching. "If you do, I'll break up with you by text." In Comic Sans, I grinned, the tension dissolving. Deal. We sealed it with a kiss, and for once the world outside felt quiet. Tom's sabotage began with rumors, whispers at the office, concerned texts to Chelsea's parents, the occasional anonymous tip about my supposed history with younger women. Then came the more creative tactics, sending a mariachi band to our apartment at 3 a.m., hacking my Spotify to replace all playlists with breakup ballads, mailing a box of rubber wedding rings to my office. It was almost impressive. Emily was the first to notice the escalation. "You've got yourself a stalker, babe," she said, flipping through her phone at brunch. "He's going to go full Lifetime movie before this is over." "He's just bored," I said, but I felt the warning. Tom didn't lose well. The real trouble started when he called Chelsea's father, a stern man who hadn't spoken to her in months. He left a voicemail, painting me as a manipulator, an opportunist taking advantage of Chelsea's fragile state. The fallout was immediate. Chelsea's family revoked their tentative RSVP and called her in tears, begging her to reconsider. She didn't cry. She called Tom and left a message of her own, voice cold as marble. "If you ever contact my family again, I'll file a restraining order." I mean it. Then she blocked him. Afterwards, she curled up in my lap and trembled for half an hour, not saying a word. The wedding day was a patchwork of nerves and caffeine. I wore a midnight blue suit tailored to a degree that made me feel both invincible and exposed. Chelsea, stunned in ivory, hair down, lipstick red as a dare. Emily shepherded us through the last-minute chaos, lost boutonnieres, a florist with food poisoning, a ring bearer who'd swallowed his own prop. I caught Chelsea's eye as we waited at the altar. She winked, then mouthed, "Comic Sans." The ceremony was small but loud, every guest buzzing with the sense that they were witnessing something scandalous, maybe even historic. Emily's opening remarks, equal parts poetry and roast, set the tone. I squeezed Chelsea's hand, feeling the hum of her nerves in my own bones. We made it through the vows without incident. I just slipped the ring onto Chelsea's finger when the back doors banged open. Tom stood there, flanked by two of his most sycophantic college buddies. He wore a tux that looked like it had been borrowed from a high school play and carried a glass of scotch, despite it being barely noon. "Sorry I'm late," he called, voice echoing off the ceiling. "Had to dig myself out of the avalanche of lies and betrayal." He toasted us, then downed the drink in one theatrical swallow. The room froze. I felt every eye on me, waiting for my reaction. Tom swaggered down the aisle, stopping 2 rows from the front. "You know, I used to think Tiffany was the sane one. But you two deserve each other. Chelsea, you want to know the truth? She never loved you. She just hates losing." A ripple of gasps swept the crowd. Chelsea's face went white, then red. She looked at me, searching, and for the first time I saw real doubt flicker in her eyes. I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. In that second, I wanted to throttle Tom, to scream that he was projecting, to tell Chelsea how much I loved her. Instead, all I managed was a brittle, "Get out, Tom." He grinned, feral. "Not until I say my piece." Emily stepped forward, holding the script for the ceremony like a shield. "You've had your piece, Tom. Time to go." He looked at her, then at us, then shrugged. "Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you. People like Tiffany don't change. They just find new games to win." He tossed the empty glass onto the carpet, missing, but not by much, and stalked out, slamming the doors behind him. The silence stretched. Chelsea stared at me, her eyes brimming but unspilled. I took her hand, steady as I could. "I'm sorry," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You deserve better. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." She looked at me, the corners of her mouth trembling. Then she smiled, and in that moment I knew we'd already survived the worst. Emily cleared her throat. "Where were we?" Laughter broke the tension, and we finished the ceremony with shaky voices and damp cheeks. When we kissed, the whole room erupted in applause. At the reception, people kept coming up to us, offering stories about Tom's long history of drama, their relief at seeing him get taken down a notch. It was petty, but I relished every minute. Chelsea found me near the bar, watching her from across the room. "What?" she asked, grinning. "Nothing," I said. I can't believe you picked me." She looped her arms around my neck. "I'd pick you 1,000 times. Even if I turn into Tom?" She kissed my cheek, soft and certain. "If you do, I'll leave you for Emily." Fair enough. We danced until our feet hurt, then collapsed into the back of a lift, still in full regalia, still a little shell-shocked. The driver congratulated us, asked if we wanted to stop for pizza. "Yes," we said in unison. He laughed. "You two are going to last forever." Maybe we would, maybe not, but for the first time in years, forever sounded less like a sentence and more like a promise. After the reception, Tom lingered like a hangover. For days, he spammed my phone with long, unhinged texts, confessions, threats, half apologies couched in executive jargon. I showed them to Chelsea, who shrugged. "Block him," she said. "He's not worth it." But I didn't. Not right away. Some part of me wanted the last word. The opportunity came at Emily's housewarming a week after the wedding. It was a smaller crowd, our inner circle, a handful of co-workers, No one obligated to attend by familial guilt. The vibe was loose. The wine poured heavy, and for once I felt like the planet was spinning in the right direction. Tom showed up late, hair rumpled, eyes red. He lingered by the bar, nursing a drink, ignoring everyone who tried to steer him into small talk. I watched him, half expecting another grandstanding move, but he just hovered, the ghost of a better man. Eventually, he cornered me in the kitchen. I waited for the accusation, the plea, the inevitable spiral. Instead, he said, "I loved you, you know." I didn't flinch. "I know." He ran a hand over his face. "It was easier to blame you." I didn't want to admit I'd lost a flicker of the old Tom, self-awareness too late but genuine. "Chelsea's not a prize," I said. "She's a person. You could have had something real if you stopped treating her like a reflection." He let out a hollow laugh. "You really believe you're the good guy here?" I looked at him, steady. "No, but I'm done being the villain in your story." He swirled his drink, silent. Then, "You're not coming back to the company, are you?" "No." "Good," he said, almost a sigh. "You'd just show me up." I smiled, and for the first time in years, it wasn't out of spite. "You could start over, Tom. Just let go." He finished his drink, nodded, and walked out. No scene, no slammed doors, just gone. Back in the living room, Chelsea lounged on the couch, arguing with Emily over the best pizza topping, jalapeno, pineapple, both, but not together. She caught my eye, crooked a finger, and I came running. "You okay?" she whispered when the others turned to the next debate. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." We snuck out before midnight, arm in arm. The city was asleep. The world felt light and possible. I deleted Tom's number on the walk home, and it felt less like revenge and more like an offering. To the universe, to Chelsea, to whoever I was finally becoming. We skipped the big honeymoon and drove out to the lake instead. Just us and a week's worth of groceries. No signal, no plan. On the first morning, I woke to the sound of Chelsea boiling water for coffee, humming something off-key. She wore my hoodie, the sleeves swallowing her hands. "I can't believe we're actually married," she said, pouring 2 mugs and setting one in front of me. "Neither can I," I replied, still half asleep. She grinned, then crawled onto my lap, nearly knocking over both mugs. "Say it again." "We're married." Once more with feeling. I kissed her, tasting caffeine and the promise of new mistakes. "We're so married, it's disgusting." We spent the days hiking, swimming, playing cards on the porch. At night, we told each other stories. Childhood failures, secret fears, stupid ambitions. I confessed my crush on a 6th-grade science teacher. She admitted she once got caught shoplifting a tube of glitter lip gloss. We fell asleep tangled together, windows open, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and possibility. On our last night, we wrote our own vows, not for any audience, just for ourselves. Chelsea's were short, scrawled on a napkin. "I promise to make you coffee when you're grumpy, to listen when you're scared, and to run beside you even when you're faster." Mine were messier. I promised to let her pick the playlist sometimes, to fight fair, to never weaponize silence or sarcasm, to choose us every day, even when it hurt. The next morning, we read them aloud by the water, barefoot in the cold sand. No witnesses, no applause, just us. When she said, "I love you," it wasn't a victory or a surrender. It was something quieter, something like a beginning. And for the first time in forever, I knew I could trust it. For more inspiring life stories, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Countless untold stories are waiting for you here. With heartfelt thanks, until next time, Tiffany Monroe from Smooth Revenge.